or anything like that. Okay, here's some differences about a jig that makes it, sort of sets it apart from other lure categories out there. A jig, even a finesse jig, this is a bulkier bait. You can see the profile of it. It's a bulky bait. It's not like, a worm or something, or it's not like a creature bait. It's got some bulk to it. It's got some size to it. And in bass fishing, any time that you upsize your lure, I don't care, if it's whatever the upsize may be, you're going to sacrifice the number of bites you get for quality. That's why your little finessey baits, like your 4-inch worms and your Ned rigs and your little shaky heads and your small swim baits, they get lots of bites. And they'll occasionally catch a decent fish, but most of the time, those fish are going to be a little bit smaller relative to other lure categories. And if you fish a big bait, say on one end of the spectrum, you got a little Ned rig, and on the other end of the spectrum, you got a big glide bait, you can expect not to get hardly any bites on a big glide bait, but you can expect to catch a lot bigger fish. And everything else is sort of like in between there. So that's one thing that you have to remember about jig fishing right off the bat, is you're probably not going to get as many bites on a jig as some other type of lure. That doesn't mean you can't, because like if you go to a little finesse jig like this, I've had 75, 80 fish days on a finesse jig, but most of the time, say for example, if I was fishing a finesse jig right next to a Ned rig, you're going to get more bites on the Ned rig. So you got to have this shift in mentality a little bit when you're jig fishing to know it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get a bite. That's one thing with it. The next thing with jig fishing is most of the time on jig fishing, with the exception of like a football head jig where you just drag along the bottom, you need to work a jig a little bit different than any other type of bottom bait. Say for example, on a plastic worm, when I'm throwing a plastic worm out there, I'm sort of dragging it like this, and maybe I'll shake it a little bit. But when I'm jig fishing, I'll throw it out there and I'll pull it up, then I'll hop it. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that jig to hop off the bottom and come down like that. My plastic worm fishing, I may be easing it along and moving it up like that, twitching it off the bottom. But I want my jigs to come anywhere between 6 inches to 2 foot off the bottom. The reason that they're going to get more bites doing this is one of the reasons a lot of people don't get as many bites on jigs, is the bulk of the jig is replaced as far as, being a strike deterrent, the size of it, by creating that reaction strike by hopping it off the bottom. So a lot of times when you hop it off the bottom like that, they either get it at the top of the hop or they get it as it's falling down. So the hopping of a jig will help create a reaction strike, and they just bite it a lot better. They just, for whatever reason. And another thing I think the reason for that is a jig is a crawdad resembling lure.